it's just really hard. I've been to Africa 52 times, so this will be the first year since 1994 that I have not at least done one hunt in Africa.
So 1994, what's been the difference between hunting Africa in 94 and now, other than obviously the virus? But I know it's changed a lot, and you've probably
It was a lot cheaper. It wasn't quite as popular. It was a lot cheaper, and I'd like to think that we had a little bit to do with that, because the purpose of Safari Hunters Journal was to make people aware that Africa is an affordable destination. And when I first presented the idea, we had a show on the Outdoor Channel, and I presented to them in probably 2000 to do an Africa show as well. And they said, people aren't interested in that, it's too expensive. And I asked the program director, how much did you spend on your last elk hunt? And of course he responded, well, I don't hunt, which I thought was telling for the Outdoor Channel. But I said, well, how much do you think you would have spent? He said, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000. And I said, that's probably right. And now, remember, this is in 2000, and it's actually applicable today as well for another reason. But you can go to Africa, including airfare, take 5 animals, spend a week there for less than you would have spent on that elk hunt. And that was the genesis for getting Safari Hunters Journal on the Outdoor Channel. And that was the message that we conveyed, because I joined Safari Club International to learn how to someday, way in the future, go to Africa and do one hunt. I bought a 375, which I had no need for, but that was what I did to give me the goal to go to Africa. I went within a year because I bought some stupid thing at a luncheon, and it turned out, there was a steenbok and a warthog in the package, about $400 worth of animals. And I go over there and spend about $8,000, which is exactly what the outfitter was looking for. And I thought, well, I better shoot as much as I can because I may never get back. And then of course I went back the next year and more and more and more. And that is the thing that was really different, to answer your question, between then and now. There wasn't as much traffic. There weren't as many people going. And over the years, depending on the level of the rand to the dollar, hunts might get a little bit cheaper, they might get a little bit more expensive, but more and more people realized that Africa was a destination that was affordable. Yeah, and not so much for the dangerous game, but for this plethora of plains game that's there. And things have gone up and up and up, and when I started, I mean, the trophy fee for a lion all in was $8,000, and now South Africa has a different deal, but to hunt a lion in Tanzania, we're talking about 60 plus. Mm-hmm. Today, how we've kind of come full circle, hunting became so popular, and there was this demand for animals. So especially in South Africa, to a lesser extent Namibia, but South Africa, they bred a lot of animals, and they just kept breeding and breeding and breeding. And the supply of animals and professional hunters got to a point that the supply was so great that markets crashed. And I'll give you an example. I'm brokering some of the hunts that I've gone on before. And 5 years ago, to hunt a sable and a roan would be about $35,000. Right now, I have a sable roan package for $8,000. It's just, markets have crashed, with the exception, dangerous game and some specialty animals like kudu, which everybody's seen. I've got a package right now of 5 decent animals in Namibia for $3,500. Mm-hmm. I've got another package in South Africa with 4 animals that's $1,900. I mean, it's just unheard of. Now, part of this is COVID, because they're just trying to get anybody there.
Right.
And that has changed the game, and it's likely going to clear out a lot of operators because these people are having to go without income for a year, and not that many businesses can survive that.
So as we're on the Africa topic, and I think a lot of people need to hear and try to really understand what hunting does for the local wildlife population. And especially, we saw a couple of weeks ago where the state of California is moving forward with legislation that I think makes it criminal to import, just the
Taxidermy.
Yeah, the taxidermy. So
Yeah.
explain. And I've been to the SCI show several times. I've covered it as a writer, and and I have a deep understanding. I think a lot of people do have an understanding of what this model of wildlife conservation does for populations. But explain to the people that don't really understand what hunting does for animals and for local economies that might see this.
Well, there's a couple of elements to this, because the pushback that you're going to get from the left is that hunting is a very small percentage of the overall economy, which is true. And that in certain places that ecotourism, the camera people, photographers that are going to the Ngorongoro crater, and they're taking pictures of the wildebeest migration, and they've got lions and leopard or cheetahs in front of them. Those things are so expensive, and lots of people go, and it generates a huge amount of money, and it's not consumptive at all unless you consider that the lodges and that kind of thing. But with the exception of some places in Tanzania and Kruger Park and the Okavango Delta and others, the rest of Africa, nobody goes to except for us. Because we go to places, hunters go to places in Africa that nobody else will go to. And what we bring when we go to those places are income, because that camp is going to be fully staffed with lots of people. And I'll give you an example. I went on an elephant hunt in Botswana. And part of the deal that the outfitter had with a local community that he would provide 35 jobs. One camp, 35 jobs. One guy's job was to light the lanterns every night. And then he picked the lights up in the morning. That was his job that he got, some kind of income from. But not only do we provide jobs, we also provide food. And what's really ironic about Africa, the indigenous people live next door to wildlife. They're the ones that have to compete with crocodiles at the river when they're gathering water or doing washing, or hippos at the river if they're coming back from a night's feed. And of course, the elephants are they rain havoc all over the cornfields, maize fields when they're about to harvest. So these people are actually competing with wildlife, and yet all this meat that surrounds them, they don't have any protein in their diet. The vast majority, probably 90% of an indigenous African's diet is something that we would call maize. They have different terms for it. Here it's grits, there it's sudza, or a bunch of different names, but it's just the white pasty cornmeal that you ball up and eat, and that's all they have. But when we come and harvest a problem elephant that is getting into the maize fields, or a buffalo in the area, these people get meat and they get it for days, and they don't have that kind of nutrition usually unless the hunters are there. And we do this all over Africa, not in the 5-star lodges in tricked out Land Cruisers that drive you up to a lion kill, and you're surrounding it are 87 other Land Cruisers. That's great, it's pretty, and it gets people closer to nature, but that's not real in the respect that we're there. We're part of the ecosystem. We are in the animal's backyard. There, it's a show, and there's nothing wrong with that. And when I've done it, it's been enjoyable, but it's expensive. And when the anti say that that generates so much more income than hunting, technically they're right, but it benefits about 0.007% of the African population. We do a lot more for people on the ground.